and you convince the world to your side, to your point. And at the end, you know, people will travel to the ends of the earth, literally, for not only his counsel, but just to be in the presence. And he did so much. We're going to talk about it over the course of this hour. It wasn't just on the political. He got symbolism. And we'll talk about even with things like rugby and how he took the Springboks as a uniting measure within his country, and not always taking, and many oftentimes intentionally taking the hard way rather than the easy way that was offered to him. Okay, Nelson Mandela, as we all know, global figure, as we just discussed, in his death, it is being mourned around the globe tonight. But of course, in South Africa, he was much more than that. He was a hero, symbol of resistance, the symbol of their civil rights struggle, the first black president, the man who held the nation together and returned to South Africa a national identity. So it is fitting we begin to look at the world reactions in South Africa, and Alex Marquardt is there.
It was just before midnight that South African President Jacob Zuma announced to the nation and to the world that Nelson Mandela had died.
This is the moment of our deepest sorrow. Our nation has lost its greatest son.
Tributes quickly poured in from around the world, including from President Barack Obama.
We've lost one of the most influential, courageous, and profoundly good human beings that any of us will share time with on this earth.
This photo shows his flag-draped coffin being taken from the home in preparation for a state funeral. This morning, large crowds gathered outside Mandela's house and around the country, singing and dancing, joyfully celebrating the life of a man who gave so many hope and freedom.
He allowed us to come together as a nation and to unite as different races and to live with one another. So I'm very grateful for that.
South Africa's first black president was surrounded by much of his family when he passed away. His grandson today said, "I am strengthened by the knowledge that he is now finally resting."
Again, Alex Marquardt reporting. Now, world leaders, artists, exiles, athletes, and so many others all sharing grief and admiration of the man. But there's another group we wanted to focus in on tonight, those dedicated to the same missions that Mandela was, principally equality, peace, and freedom, Andrew.
Well, and Rich, in a world that we report on so often, that's so often dominated by conflict and cynicism, it's easy to forget so many of these people still live among us. And tonight, they're celebrating Mandela's life, they mourn his passing, and they're renewing their own vows to follow his example. The Mandela Memorial is perhaps most moving in his beloved South Africa, where now retired Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, himself an anti-apartheid activist and Nobel Peace Prize winner, returned to the pulpit in prayers led by the Archbishop of Cape Town.
Go home, Madiba. You have selflessly done all that is good, noble and honorable for God's people. We will continue where you have left off, the Lord being our helper.
At the Mandela Foundation in Johannesburg, reflections from Ahmed Kathadra, a fellow anti-apartheid activist who spent 26 years with Mandela, locked away on Robben Island.
As a school child, I was in awe of this man, just because he was at university. But the way he related to me, he made me feel comfortable right from the start. Made me feel equal to him. And all his questions more showed an interest in me. I could relate to Madiba for all my even personal matters. But now that he's gone, who can I relate to? I don't know. Because there's nobody left who was as close to me as he was.
The foundation that bears Mandela's name recommitted but challenged in his death to following the example Mandela set.
The next is about not just about the next 10 days, but it's about the legacy. How does the Nelson Mandela Foundation see itself playing a role in preserving, protecting, and promoting the legacy?
And reflections as well from the man Mandela succeeded as South African president, the last white president the apartheid regime had, who worked with Mandela and later shared with him their Nobel Peace Prize.
I think his greatest legacy to South Africa and to the world is the emphasis which he has always put on the need for reconciliation, on the importance of human rights. In the case of South Africa, and that applies also to other parts of the world, the need to promote equality. He was a man of great integrity.
That integrity felt and reflected upon at the international body whose goal is to promote peace and human rights.
Nelson Mandela showed what is possible for our world, and within each one of us, if we believe, dream and work together for justice and humanity.
And in India by the Dalai Lama.
Sad, just feel sad and pray. There's not much meaning. Now we must develop determination or enthusiasm to carry his spirit. That's very, very important.
And finally to the U.S., where our civil rights movement certainly influenced the one Mandela led in South Africa. The connection noted by the daughter of our most celebrated civil rights icon.
My mother, in the early days, started raising awareness and writing articles about Nelson Mandela and freeing Nelson Mandela and the need for economic sanctions against apartheid. And ironically, next year we celebrate the 50th anniversary of my father receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. And he spoke about Nelson Mandela 3 days before he received the prize in London, languishing away in a prison. And he called for basically a global movement for economic sanctions, and then to take that up, and then we be the recipients of seeing Nelson Mandela emerge and come here. He came here because this is the birthplace of civil rights, and I dare say even human rights, because of the life and legacy of my father, Dr. Martin Luther King.
As well as by those who worked alongside Dr. King as well.
We've lost the greatest statesman that we've known in our time. I remember the day he came out with his head high, spirit free, without bitterness, without hatred. He was the essence and quintessence of African manhood.
And from the Vatican, Pope Francis also paid tribute to the late Nelson Mandela, sending condolences in a telegram to his family. The pontiff wrote he hoped Mandela's example, quote, will inspire generations of South Africans to put justice and common good at the forefront of their political aspirations. Rich.
Andrew, thank you very much. Now, when we continue here on RFL, Nelson Mandela's impact here on the United States, especially here in our region in New York, and as well in the White House. Stay with us.